the conversation that I do find fascinating is like, Blaire, like beyond money, what is in this for you? Because
Oh,
isn't that
God forbid she
humiliating?
believes it.
Well, it's being a pick-me girl, pure and simple.
Oh, no, it
Like,
can't be that. It
There's
can't be a belief.
there's any number of cis women that do an equivalent thing, right?
It couldn't be that Blaire just, dare we say, disagrees with you.
Right.
No, no, no. She might be someone who shares an identity element with you, who doesn't think like you do. It's like those pesky Republicans who are black. Oh, aren't they the worst?
So Blaire White is a trans conservative influencer, and I know you've both had a lot to say about each other over the years. And she is just, to me, a fascinating case study. And so I'm going to show you another small video clip of, this was from a Vice debate, where it was conservative queer people debating progressive queer people. And this is what Blaire White had to say at one point about non-binary people.
I think that a large reason why a lot of people do not understand trans people is because of non-binary and because of all these other identities that we've all talked about are constantly tacked onto the acronym that has always worked. Okay.
She says that non-binary people are the reason people don't understand trans people and all of these other identities that have been tacked onto the acronym that before this always worked. There's a lot there. Is there
Basically
any validity
true, though. I
to
think-
that?
I think Blaire White's quite correct.
What would lead someone in her position?
Yeah. Well, to an extent. I mean,
Getting,
you know,
probably to I'd say more than a more than unsubstantial extent, right?
mhm.
Telling people that there are, okay, we got boys and girls like girls and girls like boys. Pretty simple, pretty easy to understand.
Right.
But then we were like, oh, wait, some boys like boys and some girls like girls. All right, there's not that many of them, and it's not a big deal. And we can still, they're still boys and they're still just girls. And that's pretty simple to understand. That's not a big deal at all. Nice and simple, nice and easy. All right. And then now it's like, well, now the boys and girls part, we need to expand our horizons. And that is understandably a very difficult thing for a lot of people to wrap their heads around, right? A boy liking a boy and a girl liking a girl, pretty simple to understand. But when you start throwing in more than other genders, and this gender isn't a gender, but it's gender, and like, yeah, that's understandably a bridge too far for a lot of people. And it's just stranger. It's just flat out a more strange thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think from like an ideological, philosophical perspective, a lot of the non-binary stuff does not actually mesh with a lot of gay and trans acceptance, and it kind of destroys a lot of what makes the acceptance of those movements like work. However, most people don't care about any of that stuff, or think about any of that stuff, or have conversations about any of that stuff. Because like the way that I look at it is basically we had trans acceptance started to happen in the country. You had Caitlyn Jenner, you had Jazz, you had some other things that started to push like the trans acceptance. And then a lot of the non-binary stuff kind of just like snuck under the door with it. And I don't think
Now you go
now
on the
the
internet, it
pushback,
hits you like a freight train, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? And
yeah, exactly. Right. It snuck under the door, and now it's like, but it's like much larger than the actual trans movement itself was. But I don't think like the backlash against some of the trans stuff has anything to do with the non-binary stuff in terms of people understanding it. I think the backlash is almost all just because of the kids stuff.
trans and the kids stuff.
Yeah, the kids transitioning stuff. So like if the kids transitioning stuff wasn't happening, I'm not like I would still wouldn't necessarily agree with the non-binary stuff, but I don't think anyone else really cares about it. They just say, "Oh, that's weird," and then they kind of like walk away. So
I don't know that I agree with the scientific understanding of the trans stuff.
Mhm.
But
You're
there
allowed.
is, what's that?
I said you're allowed.
Well, look, I understand. I at least understand the logic of the argument that they're making, even if
Yeah.
I don't agree with their evidence or the science behind it, if you can even call it that.
Yeah.
With the non-binary stuff, I don't even understand the logic. Like I think that is the problem with the non-binary stuff. I think the bar for selling non-binary is, without explaining it in a way that just sounds like fashion, is so high that I just
Right.
normal people just it's an unsellable product to them. So I do think it hurts the credibility of the trans stuff, which I mean, there's this whole idea of, you're born in the wrong body, you have
That's still
a
working within
female
like a
brain.
two-gender sort of paradigm that civilization has known since
Exactly.
essentially its inception. I'm a boy, but I'm going to like essentially be a girl for the purposes of my interaction with society. It's how I feel and want to be accepted as and all that
Well,
stuff.
and maybe I have a brain that's the opposite sex. There's
Yeah,
some
I'm just
sort of
wired a bit. I was like,
Yeah.
I've got this hardware and this software, but
there's a
it's all
logic
male,
you
female.
can follow. Yes.
Yeah.
What is the logic of non-binary now, Rags?
It seems to be like, I don't know. I think you calling it like an aesthetic kind of thing, a trendy thing, kind of rings really true in a lot of cases. Where it's like, I don't even know. Like, I totally buy the like, yeah, there's trans people, of course, and there's gay people, straight people, yeah, pretty clear. But it's like, oh, I'm a neither a male nor a female. I'm like my own thing over here. I'm like, I don't even know if I buy that.
Yeah, it's like what is going on here? How do I understand this from a scientific perspective? And I just think that is the bar that people are encountering. And a lot of people, obviously, if you're in this and you just accept it because it's a social thing and everyone is doing it, you don't need to understand the logic or the science of it. But most people are not in this club. So there's like, explain it to me. Explain this to me like I'm 2 years old. And they just can't.
And I have a general political and philosophical and moral disposition such that if you want to, is like, I don't have to agree or understand or really know what a non-binary really is. But man, if you're over there doing your thing and you want to be non-binary and you're just having a great time, man, that go for it, man. That my inner libertarian blesses you. Go about your merry way and enjoy yourself.
Well, I
So-
totally agree on that level. But the
Yeah.
problem is when you want to come in and say, look, there's a truth claim here
Yeah,
that
you
we can
have to call me
study.
this. You have to
Yeah.
call me this thing.
Then I'm like, okay, well, let's look at that truth claim. Let's examine it. Let's study it. But you can't.
Yep.
As a trans woman to feel that way.
Is there any validity to it? No.
Right.
What would lead someone to feel that way? Well, I think it's a combination of incentives to think this way. I think that in a way, it's a way of like defending yourself psychologically, because at the moment there's a massive amount of animosity being directed at LGBT people and at trans people in particular. And when you have, very prominent political figures, Ron DeSantis, Christopher Rufo, etc., saying loudly and publicly that trans people are groomers or pedophiles, the shame and the stigma of that is a lot to deal with psychologically. So I think one thing that people do is that it's almost like trying to reassure yourself, oh, they're not really talking about me. Of course, I'm not really the object of this scorn. It's because of the non-binary people. That's why they're confused, right? It's them. And then you can sort of reposition yourself where you're on the side of the accuser instead of on the side of the accused. And
But
I
see,
don't
we're already drawing
see-
sides. We're already bringing up the tribes, right? I think a lot of trans people, gay people, bisexual, whatever, I think they're fucking cringe as hell, and I don't like being lumped into that group, right? So I don't like that, and I'm not going to drop these lines of that just because I don't like a lot of the social stuff or the aesthetics of whatever. That doesn't mean I'm on the straights side now. That's not how this works.
You're
Is-
betraying your kind. What do you mean?
Yeah,
These
it's like
gays
your
against
kind, my
groomers
kind,
going
their
after
kind.
non-binary people. Like she just so casually throws out the groomer people, the people labeling people groomers are going after non-binary people. That seems ridiculous to me.
I thought the gays against groomers usually, I don't know about non-binary stuff. They're usually doing like, I thought the anti-transing the kids was like, the
Yeah,
topic that
they're talking
kinda-
about political activists in the classroom. The fact
Oh
that
wait,
she
no,
doesn't.
here we go. Gays against groomers. This is probably what they're referring to. This is from, I do remember this. Gays Against Groomers tweeted out, beloved children's show Paw Patrol has created a non-binary character. The episode was, of course, written by none other than Queer Kid Stuff host Lynn
Oh,
Zamer.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
I know. Who we recently did a radar watch list report on.
But
So there you
that
go.
makes my point. that they're not attacking non-binary people. They're attacking purveyors of the ideology.
Right. Well, let me keep reading the tweet because I think this kind of elucidates this. If you actually look at the character in the show, she's clearly just a tomboy. This is an example of the gender cult's attempt to transition and recruit into their ideology. It's sad and infuriating. Tomboys are perfect as they are and don't
Yes,
need
they
to
are.
identify as anything else. Gender non-conforming children are not trans or non-binary. Hashtag save the tomboy.
Any physical movement that lowers the number of tomboys in the world is morally evil and should be eradicated.
Is that your favorite subclass of women?
That's like burning the Mona Lisa.
Again, I still
I wonder
feel
what
like
movie
they're
did
going
that.
after the teachers, the purveyors of the ideology, and not the
Well,
non-binary people.
The problem is that there's a bunch of things going on here because, as I said, the non-binary ideology destroys a lot of the ideology of what's going on with children transitioning and with gender and gay acceptance. And I think that Blaire, who engages in all these conversations, and the Gays Against Groomers people that engage in all these conversations, that's where their headspace is because they know that these contradictions exist. However, I don't think that the average person knows or cares that those contradictions exist. So that's not what's motivating their behavior. I think it's more just the children stuff.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. But she's making it seem like the Gays Against Groomers are attacking non-binary people. And I'm saying they're not saying non-binary people are pedophiles. They're saying that people who are introducing children to this ideology are
bad.
groomers.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Are grooming them for an ideology.
Yes, right. Because their view is that, you know, they're gay, right? And they're viewing that, well, they're tomboys or effeminate gay men, and essentially society or these quote groomers are basically tricking them into transitioning their sex to, as opposed to just being, lesbian or gay.
Right. Yes.
Oh.
That's the perception. But I don't know that Contra or the host understands that.
Well, I'm sure they've heard that argument. They just don't even want to, I guess they don't accept it and they don't want to even give it any space to even debate it at all, whether it's like valid or not.
Right.
So
I think that sort of helps with the anxiety of, you know, this environment of bigotry. So that's definitely, that's one psychological factor. Another, I think, is more material. I think that when you're talking about commentators and influencers, it sounds like kind of a cheap accusation to be like, oh, they're just doing it for money. But also, like, I don't know, influencers are often motivated by what is a financially viable position to advocate for. And there's always going to be a job opening for a queer person who wants to talk about how homophobia is gay people's fault, right?
Totally.
Like, there's always going to be people who are going to pay to hear you say that. And so there's always going to be some cynical person who's going to come along and be willing to perform that part.
So I don't think that's how audience capture works. I think audience capture works is that people are operating in a space that they are saying things that they truly believe. They grow an audience around that, and then they become afraid to kind of move away or against the views of the audience, you know, but there's still a core that they agree with there. Because I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Agree.
Like I don't think Blaire White or a gay or trans person is going to sit around saying, the way for me to make money is to try to fit into this incredibly niche area of being like an accepted by conservatives, you know, conservative gay trans person. Like that's the dumbest way to make money. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like Blaire White would make crap tons of money being, you know, super wokey. Like none of this makes any sense.
At some point, homophobia is gay people's fault, though. Like, you can't just say categorically homophobia is never gay people's fault. Like, there's a point, right?
What is the context of your statement? Because it's going to be taken wildly out of context. So
look, if gay people gain political power and make straight marriage illegal, people are going to hate gay people.
Sure, but that doesn't really seem to be on the table, right?
Well, look, a lot of people, the gay pride stuff happens every year, and a lot of people are saying, look, this is getting more and more pornographic, right?
Yeah.
If gay pride gets so pornographic that they're literally having gay sex in the street in front of children, I think the
agree.
homophobia is going to be off the charts. And
Yes.
ContraPoints can no longer sit on her comfy podcast couch and say, look, it's the homophobia is not our fault, right? At some point, you have to take responsibility for your community.
Sure.
So, like, okay. You disagree?
I mean, I do agree that that's the bridge between trying to, quote, assimilate into, normative values and, quote, being your authentic self. You have to find the golden mean there between the two.
Yeah, I just look, it's you can't, there has to be some sort of compromise here. And I don't like this. We're starting the conversation with our community can do no
here's
wrong.
the problem. Here's the problem with the, I mean, first of all, I think your phrasing is bad. You shouldn't phrase it the way you did because it's going to sound like victim blaming. But I do agree. And I think what's going on is that, like, for example, there's lots of guys out there, straight men out there, who would love to, like, fuck women in public and just be like disgusting.
Oh yeah,
things,
voyeurism
right?
and exhibition. Yeah, those are high tier fetishes.
Right. And
high
so
tier.
There you go. Rags
Those are
loves
patrician
it.
tier
He's one
fetishes.
of them. Okay, he's one of them.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that basically our society for thousands of years has said, listen, you shouldn't men shouldn't just be fucking women in public. That's degenerate. And everyone kind of just said, okay, fine.
Yeah, okay, fine. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But then suddenly it gets lumped into like queerness and being gay. And it's like, oh, well, now it's a revolutionary action, right?
How come having sex in the street with animal masks is now an inherently like left political thing?
It becomes a moral action, even though everyone agreed that it was like not like it's bad. And if straight people are doing it, it's bad. But if queer people are doing it, it suddenly becomes magically good. And it's just because so much of, and this is something that I think Contra and other people have to accept, a lot of queer theory and a lot of queer aesthetic is to just be counter whatever the normative values are.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, you gotta, at some point, you have to take responsibility. You can't just blame the other.
Yeah, there is an element of introspection on how you behave that you should take into account. Not every problem comes from without.
Sure.
There is a way that you could like moderate yourself. I mean, everyone has to do it. This is not a thing that is exclusive to one sexuality or identity over another. Literally every fucking human being has to moderate the way that they behave when they're in public. My naked chair is in my house. It's not outside of my house. All right. The way that I behave, the way that I behave in the privacy of my own home is not the way that I behave in public. And I'm not going to cry foul because of that. I'm glad that's the case because I don't want to be subject to all the weird shit people do in private and when I go out in public, right?
Yeah.
Just because you can't behave the way you want to behave out in public, that doesn't mean it's necessarily some kind of oppressive thing.
Sure.
Well, I hear gay people sometimes talk about the propriety of the Gay Pride Month and Pride parades and stuff like that. And a lot of times they're just shouted down by other people. And I feel so bad for them because they're trying to address this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of funny because the whole like doing open sex stuff at Pride is kind of, I would argue, is a form of misogyny because I think it's women that really like temper guys' sex, like being disgusting sex perverts, especially in public.
I 100% agree.
Oh my God, there's just like no limit. Like when it's a guy's sexuality and a guy's sexuality meeting together and they're all for it and they just go on.
There's no breaks, just gas.
There's just no breaks on this crazy train, man.
Because like we could all imagine, like if hypothetically there were no women and all guys were just gay, like I'm pretty sure society would be very different in terms of like guys would be just fucking each other in public like constantly, and like I'm like, oh, whatever.
It would probably just be more normal. There's a general feminine approach to sex, it seems, that is a lot more reserved and tempered,
selective and tempered.
Than men are just all for it. Yeah, men are just horny fuckers.
women in women in the Pride movement had to be like, listen, you misogynist, keep your dick in your pants. Okay.
It's interesting because I wonder if the part of this problem is that they've kicked all the gay conservatives out of the movement, because that
Yes,
That would have
100%.
been a tempering force.
yes,
in terms of their
exactly,
appearance.
exactly. The propriety of the gay pride stuff might be more to the heterosexual community's liking if they actually had those gay conservatives involved.
Yeah, well, it's like colleges. Like they didn't kick them out, but for whatever reason, a lot of college professors it wasn't a profession that was attracting conservatives. And if you have any area that's not attracting like conservatives or progressives, one side is going to basically slowly dominate, that ideology of that field. So
Right. And their aesthetic, their ethic is going to prevail.
yes, yeah,
Well, and I feel like at this point, Blaire White has helped carve out this like actual field in a certain part of conservative media that like you see more and more queer people occupying, which is the conservative queer influencer, which is, I mean, there's Blaire White, there's Ariel Scarcella, there's Christian Walker, this boy on TikTok, this like
This is so disgusting.
isn't it?
They're not addressing any of their reasoning for being in the position that they're in. They're just attributing it all to like a aesthetic grift.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know about the other one, but Aria Scarcella was very motivated by, she's
a
lesbian. And
Yes.
she's like, I feel like a lot of lesbians are basically falling down in the rabbit hole of transitioning when they don't need to and regretting it. That's kind of what's
Yes.
motivating her. And this kind of reminds me of, when we covered the Blaire White versus Jonathan Doyle, Caitlin Borshenko.
Oh, that was a
Blaire
good
White
one.
side,
That was
and
a
the
crazy.
and the Lauren Witzke, is that her name? Lauren Witzke
Yeah.
debate. Yeah, it was
Yes.
Lauren Witzke and Jonathan Doyle versus Blaire White and Carlin Borshenko. And in that debate, it's like insane because like Lauren Witzke is like she becomes like the preacher at the pulpit, like thumping her Bible and telling Blaire she's gonna like burn in hellfire for 1,000 years. And so many people on the left, the reaction to that is, oh my God, Blaire White is such a disgusting sellout. She lets this horrible right-wing bigot just, thump her Bible and it's shit all over Blaire, and Blaire just takes it and she looks so weak and pathetic. Blah, blah. They're just going on and on and on about how awful Blaire was. And I don't remember who I was talking to. It might have been Doomer, it might have been someone else who was more on the left. And I was like, have you ever looked at the comment section of that video? Because if you look at it, it's just nothing but conservatives talking about how bad they feel for Blaire and how disgusted they are with Lauren.
Yeah,
And that's what all the comments are. And it's like they just completely misunderstand that, like, no, like Blaire's existence actually does help your movement.
Massively. It creates empathy from the conservatives. Yeah.
Yes.
It humanizes them.
Yeah. And it shows that like not every person who is gay or trans is like buys into all of the rest of the ideology.
Yeah.
That you like this is one of the things that I want to ask, someone like Sam or someone else in the future is like, what part of trans issues are you allowed to disagree with without being labeled a transphobe? Because it seems like the answer is like you have to buy this entire package or none of it.
Unfortunate.
insufferable twink Clarkson Lawson, who they all make the same videos, which is that they just go on and they're like, well, maybe if trans activists and non-binary pronoun people, blue hair, yada yada, weren't so crazy, they'd finally start accepting us, you guys. And it's like they amass these really big audiences immediately, and also they immediately get put on like Newsmax.
I don't know. It's like, I'm sorry that your reaction to someone telling you to chill the fuck out is like incredible revulsion and disgust and like disbelief. But I don't know. It's the kind of thing that a lot of people learn at a pretty early age. It's never too late, to learn to temper your behavior and have some introspection. But might as well start now, might as well start today.
And they get these like primetime specials where they're like, so it's true, like homophobia doesn't really exist in 2023. And they're like, yes, Tucker, that's true. And that's why I made the joke at the beginning where it's like, I don't actually think for these people, for these specific like commentators and influencers, it is cheap to be like, well, they're just doing it for money. I think I think like you said, there's a number of psychological reasons why you might want to believe that, because like you said in one of your videos, you know,
Well, they
pointing the
believe
finger
it,
away
maybe.
from yourself and at like the weirder queer people, it you know, it takes the blame off you.
No, but that might be valid. The blame might not be on you. It might be the freak standing next to you fucking in public that is standing next to you that might be the issue. Whenever there's an issue, like in general in life, it costs you nothing to begin by looking inwards, right? It costs you nothing to just say, you know, let's see, is this problem that I'm facing because of me? Could I do something to alleviate this? Is this coming from my own behavior or any action that I'm taking? Or is it coming from outside? Because it might be coming from outside. It's very possible. A lot of problems are, but maybe it isn't. And it costs you nothing to have that little bit of introspection. And it builds up a really healthy mental habit for you as well.
It's like the witch trials. You just pass along the blame and the shame and the accusation. But also, there's like a pretty well-defined route to like having a primetime right-wing media show at this point as a queer person.
Yeah.
Why?
Caitlyn
would that
Jenner
be?
did it.
Will we explore that?
That's a start.
Well,
No.
because
Maybe
they're
they don't
not-
actually have a problem with the identity. It's the behavior and the crazy beliefs of people who might have that identity. And if a lot of people who have that identity often have those beliefs and those behaviors, then maybe there will be a correlation that is not necessarily causative.
Well, I do think obviously there are a lot more gay people on the left, which means it's going to be a lot more competitive for being entertaining to have a show and whatnot. And if there's less gay people on the right, and that's something people want, a show,
it does make you stand out. There is an element of, you know, there's an element of, for lack of a better term, I'm the gay one. But it does make you stand apart.
I think the thing that they're missing though is I don't think you can, well, I guess you can to some extent, but I think it's not something you can do indefinitely. I don't think you can fake like being a conservative. I think sooner or later people can tell if you're
They figure it
authentically
out.
conservative or not. Yeah, exactly. Do you
It
look,
takes a special kind of person to really go through 100% with that kind of charade.
Look, I never thought Hunter Avalon was conservative. Like I never really felt like he was authentically conservative in any
Really?
way. I felt like he was just putting on an act. Yeah, exactly.
I
Look,
never
I
got
do
that, but-
I do look at people and sometimes I think, oh, this person, I mean, I could be wrong, but Hunter Avalon is an interesting case because then he was like, oh, I'm not conservative anymore. I'm going to totally flip my politics, which makes me think, okay, well, I never thought you were conservative to begin with. So that seems like an easy move to make. But you understand what I'm saying. They think that there is no such thing as a gay conservative. They're like, there's gay people, there's gay leftists that act as though they're conservative to grift. That's the world that they live in, which is
they're
it's a
looking
weird
at
thing.
it from the perspective of, you know, we're looking at it from the perspective of like people have these kind of political moral intuitions, which they're kind of a large extent born with.
Yes.
And then people kind of slot into various political parties based off of it.
Yes.
I think, I mean, they're not looking at it from that perspective. They're looking at it from the perspective of just like, no, people just are like these rational actors that are like, you know, well, I guess, I mean,
you mean
Contra said
progressives.
irrational, so that's not true. But like that people are just like making some either rational or irrational decision about like what political identity they want to fit into. And I don't think that's how that works at all.
And if they're rational, they pick progressive. And if they're irrational, they pick conservative.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the lens that they laid out early on.
Yes. Yeah.
Stone that, you know, we're not going to leave unturned in this episode either. But the other thing I wanted to bring up with Blaire White was her Blaire White's pinned tweet right now that's pinned to her profile for the last several months is a selfie of her looking hot. She looks great. She's wearing a bikini. She's serving cunt.
Is she wearing a bikini?
And the replies, there are 5,000 replies.
Oh, I guess I missed
Mostly
it.
There was a picture on the screen, Rags. What are you doing?
Go back. No. I was looking at the picture. Could you go back?
There it is.
Where's the big? I'm missing something here. Where is the bikini?
You don't see Blaire White in a
do you-
bikini?
yeah,
then?
I
what
see
do you-
Blaire White, but I don't see the bikini.
What is she's wearing what do you call that? The camo out
I-
bathing suit?
Oh, is it camouflaged?
Is she like
Oh,
is she like
I
melting into the
see.
wall or something?
No,
like
I see.
what's
That was
happening?
camouflage.
Is this a
I didn't-
joke?
you could
I
see
didn't
it.
notice.
You
I
could
didn't
see
notice it because
He
it was
was-
Are you
camouflaged.
making?
I
Are
see-
you
I see
making
what
a
it is.
camo
Yeah,
joke?
he-
It was.
could-
It was really
yeah.
good. I'm sorry. Carry on. My eyes aren't that good.
No,
I
he
guess I
just-
just didn't notice.
Yeah,
the
he saw all
camouflage,
he
yeah.
saw was just like a wall with lips and eyes and a gun. And
Yeah,
he's
I was
like,
just
"What's going on
confused.
here?"
I wasn't gonna say anything until someone had mentioned it, but
Okay.
that's just really seemed really weird to me.
Right.
But yeah, no, I understand now. We can. Carry
Are they
on.
objecting? Are they objecting to the gun?
Well, so the original, okay, so the tweet was that Blaire White put this out. It says, if you see a bulge in a conservative woman's pants, it's a gun. If you see a bulge in a liberal woman's pants, it's a penis.
Right.
And
Ooh,
of
woo.
course, the irony is that Blaire White has a penis. So, but that's obviously the part of the joke of the tweet.
Does Blaire White have a penis? Is that
I believe
Oh.
so. Yes,
okay?
Damn, nice tuck
I
work
mean-
there.
it's a pretty good tuck work. Yeah.
Yeah, bravo to you, good lady.
She looks great. She's
Noble
wearing a
maiden.
bikini. She's serving cunt. And the replies, there are 5,000 replies, mostly from conservative men who are arguing with each other about whether or not it is gay that they find her hot.
They don't
It
even
is
mention
not
the gun.
gay that you find her hot.
They don't. First of all, there's nothing wrong with arguing over whether or not it's gay to find her hot. Like, what is
Don't you
wrong
want
with that?
well, don't you want those conservatives to? Don't you want them to have that discussion? This is where it begins, guys. When you start finding trans people hot, that's the
Right.
gateway drug.
And what is? Hold on. What is so offensive about having that conversation? Why is that an
Nothing.
offensive
I don't know what these
conversation?
people want.
That's so weird. They don't look. They don't even mention the gun once. The first 20 minutes of this,
It's a
they
basic bitch
couldn't-
AR-15.
they
at
couldn't
me.
start. They couldn't start. They couldn't stop talking about the guns. She's got a giant gun in her hand. They don't even bring it up.
Well,
I don't
it's because okay. Well, let them play first before I.
Yeah. Okay. What's wrong? What's wrong with this?
want to get into that
conversation?
conversation. But the conversation that I do find fascinating is like, Blaire, like beyond money, what is in this for you? Because
Oh
isn't that
God forbid she
humiliating?
believes it.
Well, it's being a pick me girl, pure and simple.
Oh no,
Like,
it can't be that. It can't be a belief.
There's any number of cis women that do an equivalent thing, right? And there's again incentives to do this. If you're willing to sacrifice a certain level of self-respect, if you're willing to make yourself a little bit smaller and put up with
Because remember, if you're trans, but you have a lot of conservative opinions and the other side fucking hates your guts, so you hang out with conservatives, you're making yourself smaller. You're getting rid of a part of yourself, even if it's things that you earnestly believe, because that's just beyond the pale. It couldn't be that Blaire just, dare we say, disagrees with you.
Right.
No. She might be someone who shares an identity element with you, who doesn't think like you do. It's like those pesky Republicans who are black. Oh, aren't
Well-
they the worst?
And it's kind of weird too because Contra's talking about like, well, Blaire doesn't have self-respect here. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If you have a bunch of conservatives who in normal situations would say, ew, trans people are all icky and gross and they're disgusting. And now you have Blaire here who's basically created an argument where a bunch of
Challenging
people are
that.
like, well, I mean, I know I'm straight, but I'm not that straight, right? Or there's some, is it gay? Like, isn't that actually helping the cause?
Well,
How's that
yeah,
not
this is
helping
how
the
you
cause?
start the conversation. There is a
Yeah.
person, it's biologically a male, yet how come my pee hard? We need to be talking about this, guys.
Right,
This is
yeah.
unprecedented.
Right. So it seems like it should be helping. Contra should be in favor
Absolutely,
of
it should
this.
be
Yeah.
helping. They should be thanking her.
Yes. But no.
more
But no.
humiliation, there's also a kind of reward that comes with it. I think that, just to talk about, women as an analogous case, I think that
What is
a
one?
large percentage of women go through some stage in their life of enthusiastically endorsing the male point of view because it's easy, right? We're all kind of
The male
raised
point
in,
of view.
you know,
You know
you
that
go to
point of
school and you read a
view.
bunch of books.
What is that?
You know
even
how
mean?
those males have that one point of view.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree, Rags. I'm so offended by that all the time. It's like, what the hell? Imagine if we started talking about the women's point of view.
You know how women are.
All the same. Yeah, women.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
emotional, bad at math women. Can't drive women, right? That women
True.
point of view.
True.
I
Look,
just hate
it's
the
so
way that all men
sexist.
think of women.
Yeah, but
That's all I'm saying.
but ContraPoints is allowed to get away with it.
Mhm.
Ridiculous.
Endorsing the male point of view because it's easy, right? We're all kind of raised in, you know, you go to school and you read a bunch of books by men that show the male perspective,
Ugh.
and men have
Yes.
generally
Karl
more power
Marx
than women.
and Arthur C. Clarke, basically the same perspective.
Well, they're all male, so
I mean, I've never read a book by a woman before.
That's true.
They actually write books? Come on, guys.
And the left finally found a book written by a woman that they can quote endlessly, and it turns out it's, well, not the right kind of woman.
there you go.
I'm kidding. I've read lots of books by women, so
Ew.
I'm
don't think
always
I have,
amazed
so
that
that's
they're
just
good.
coincidental.
Women, and there's a huge historical precedent for that. So I think, and you know, men praise you, and men like it when you validate their way of seeing, and you don't challenge them, and you don't make demands, and you don't stand up for yourself, and you don't be difficult, right? So much of this
Women
has to do
love
with
difficult
whether
men.
it's difficult, right? It is difficult for white people.
Yeah,
White
men,
people.
men hate difficult women. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Now, what's she gonna say about white people? Oh, those pesky
no.
whites,
Oh,
always
no.
generalizing.
Are we,
Ugh.
are we on the white people train now?
Yeah, I hate how
had no
white
idea.
people always generalize. It really bugs me.
I had no idea this got this painful.
Of course.
This is all. This is already horrible.
Time for the pesky whites, Adam.
Please make it stop,
The
Sitch.
pesky whites. Okay, listen, they don't want any of these uppity women and non-whites. Okay.
That'd be a good rename,
so
rebrand. The Pesky White Podcast.
Oh yeah, that is
Yeah.
a good name. I like it.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
old P Dubs. Yeah,
Well, that sounds a little like a pedo. So I don't know about that.
We'll
part.
rebrand at $2.99 so we don't have to do a 300th episode.
There you go.
So
Perfect.
I think, and you know, men praise you, and men like it when you validate their way of seeing, and you don't challenge them, and you don't make demands, and you don't stand up for yourself, and you don't be difficult, right? So much of this has to do with
I like
whether
that,
it's
though.
difficult.
So I guess
right?
I'm a bad
It
man.
is difficult for white people to hear that racism is real
White
and an
people.
ongoing problem, and something that they might have to deal with, and something that they might themselves be participating in.
Yeah,
It's
those
difficult.
whites.
Well, it is difficult when you
Those whites.
don't actually give us any evidence for this claim.
Well, it's sad because there was a time period where Contra was pretty moderate.
Less
And it seems
racist?
like, yeah, and now, and it seems like now that's gone completely out the window, and we've kind of adopted this like very woke white people just can't accept their racism like nonsense attitude.
Right, yeah.
It's sad.
It is sad.
But you know what? I'll do her the service by not accusing her of being a grifter.
Well, you should, but
Yeah. I'm not going that far, Rags. It sounds like you're on your own on this one. I mean, at some level, you got to wonder, right? If you move from someone who tries to be somewhat intellectually honest to someone who just embraces whatever your audience wants, you got to kind of wonder, right? I mean, just a little bit, Sitch.
I don't think it's a grift. I think it's just the
That's what I'm saying, but
radicalization of
I
being
won't
in
say
that
it's a
space.
grift. I'm going to do her a service she would not give to other people.
Mhm.
Look, I don't
Yeah.
care if she thinks we're grifting. I have
Okay.
like,
Yeah,
I'm
her opinion is
fine.
like worthless to me. I don't fucking care.
Yeah,
There's not someone who I take seriously in any way. This is
Yeah,
a
I-
little
Dare
cow.
you.
I'm comfortable in my own authenticity. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about it
Okay.
here. I'm just.
I don't
saying.
actually require the validation of internet weirdos.
Yes.
Okay, bigot.
Well,
I think our picture of reality is much clearer. And
Of
I
course it
do
is.
think
Yeah.
ContraPoints at one point shared that perspective
Yes.
and didn't think, all gay conservatives are just grifting. That position does seem tailor-made for an audience that wants to hear it.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
For men to hear that misogyny exists and that some of their attitudes towards women are actually really toxic
What
and,
a woman hates to hear.
and
Say it. Do
damaging and bigoted. It's difficult for straight people
What do
or
blacks
cis
hate to
people to hear that they have, that their point of view is homophobic. So if you can kind of flatter these kind of basic prejudices, people find that comforting, I think, right? So, if you can
Look, if you agree with somebody because you think that they're right, you're flattering their prejudices, Sitch.
Yeah.
I can't wait to flatter someone's prejudices. Every day, you want to flatter at least one prejudice.
How dishonest is that? How dishonest is that? Do you think Contra really thinks that's all that's going on here?
Yes.
At one point, ContraPoints understood that there were ideological differences between the left and the right. I mean,
That time has passed.
there were videos about it, though. Are you saying that ContraPoints now just has changed?
Like Lord of the Rings, where like Galadriel's like, the world has changed.
Right.
That's where we are.
So the world changed. ContraPoints didn't change.
No, ContraPoints has changed. ContraPoints has just become ContraPoints has been surrounded by basically leftists for so long that have been attacking it for so long. It's funny. I feel like a lot of this is projection. I feel like a lot of this is that she basically gave up her opinion to the crazy left people that wouldn't leave her alone.
Right. She's given in to the mob. The mob said, no, this is what we believe.
Yeah, that's how it reads to me.
She's Captain Picard. She's saying, oh, no, there's 3 lights. Yeah, whatever you say. 2 light. How many lights you want?
5 lights. Yes. Yeah, she's saying that there's 5 lights, and clearly there isn't. So.
Hey, we've been
Right.
looking for one of you 3-lighters on our cool Romulan podcast.
First of all, Cardassian.
Cardassians, sorry.
How
Whatever,
dare
they're all scum.
Is it actually 4 lights and they're trying to get him to say 5?
Yes.
Okay, I'll remember
Or is it
next
3?
time.
I forget.
thought it
I
was 5.
forget.
I know.
Somebody
there
has
are
to
4,
know this.
There are 4 lights. Is how many lights there actually are?
Right.
Yeah.
And they want him to say how many? They keep telling him the wrong number, though.
Yeah, I keep telling the wrong number. I don't remember if it's 3 or 5.
Contra has given in
I
to
think
the
it's 5.
Cardassians. It's the Cardassians that are doing this 4-light thing?
It's the Cardassians.
Right.
It's the Kim Kardashians who are
It's
doing
right.
it.
Classic.
They captured
Kim
Patrick
Kardashian.
Stewart and they brought him to their sex dungeon.
ContraPoints
And they
is-
went
I
at
mean,
they're
he
like,
is
we
tied
heard
up
that you
naked.
can count to 5. We
He
need
is
you to
tied
help
up
us learn
naked,
how to count
so-
to 5.
Yeah, that's essentially what's going on.
ContraPoints has given in to the Kim Kardashians of the world.
It's 5 lights. Yeah. Okay. Hey, look, it's Dev. Hey, Dev.
Hi, Dev.
Hi, you just listened to a clip from the Sitch and Adams show. If you like what you heard, you can listen to our live show right here on this channel on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you want, you can super chat us. We read $20 and up super chats on the show and then do a follow-up stream on the following Tuesday where we read the rest of the unread super chats and interact with fans of the show. Subscribe to this channel right here to listen to the live show or to listen to more of our awesome clips.